What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Resist the Algorithm podcast. I am Ryan, and I decided to start this podcast because I think talking about things and sharing opinions are what makes America great. And if we lose sight of that and we stop doing that, then we will effectively lose the country. And I believe we are on the road to that right now. So I am here to do my part and encourage each and every one of you to do your parts so that we don't end up there, because America is the greatest country ever to exist and ever to bless the world. Without America, the world would be a very different place. So the other day I talked about five traits of truth seekers, and I kind of want to go over them again because they're going to be a part of the core of this podcast. Um, so I believe that we all should want to seek truth, and that's where our desire to have opinions and perspectives and that sort of thing should come from. We should want the truth. And if we don't want the truth, then we're kind of shooting for a goal that is, I don't know, either manipulative or malicious or something different in kind. If you don't want the truth to come out, that's something that's wrong. It's evil. We should want the truth to come out in all situations, and for it to be something that is well known, something that's not hidden away. Uh, as kids growing up, our parents told us, nothing bad could come from telling the truth. Now, sure, there might be consequences from telling the truth, especially if it's about yourself, where you did something wrong. But an example of that. So, I wasn't even thinking about telling this, but yesterday I stopped at the gas station to grab my typical soda, and usually I have a vacuum cup with me. These popular metal vacuum cups. I love them. They keep my stuff cold. I don't have it necessarily because I'm saving the environment, but I think that's a nice consequence of also using it because I'm not throwing away plastic cups all the time. And I believe that in my faith, I've been called to be a good steward of everything I have control over. So typically I have that with me. Well, I took it inside to wash. I forgot to grab it on my way out. I went to the gas station. They have self checkout lanes. And I just instinctively hit the refill button. It was such muscle memory. I hit the refill button, and which is cheaper. It's like $1 instead of $1.60 or whatever. And uh, I rung out, and I realized as I was looking at my receipt, I was like, oh shoot, that should have been another 50 cents or whatever. Well, I then went and I waited at the front counter for the manager to tell them that because I shorted the company 50 cents. I think most people in that situation, they probably would have just said, it's 50 cents. The manager probably won't care. I'm just leaving. And it's true. The manager did not care. She was, in fact, a little surprised. She's like, oh my gosh, you're good. Have a nice day. When I told her, hey, I hit the wrong button. I said I had a refill because I usually do, but today I didn't, and I had a cup. I took one of the cups. I shorted you guys. And she was kind of taken aback, like, oh my gosh, it's 50 cents. You could see it on her face, right? And she said, you're fine. Thank you very much. Have a nice day. I said to her, at the very least, I wanted to be honest about it. How many times do things like that happen? And people tell themselves, oh, it's just a little thing. It's not a big deal. Who cares? I'm just going to leave, right? But the thing is, when those little things start to pile up, when those little things start to be this big monster of little tiny lies, then you start to make concessions for the bigger lies. And then those things start to pile up and you make concessions for the bigger lies. And now all of a sudden you have this bastardized worldview where you think you're the hero of the story, but really you're the villain. Okay? So that's why I believe truth is so important, even in the small, tiny things. I'm not telling this story to pat myself on the back. I would have happily paid an extra dollar. I would have happily paid a whole new drink if she said there wasn't a way to rectify it. But she was gracious and she said it's fine, which a good company will. But that's not the point. The point was I did something wrong. I wronged a company. I wronged a individual essentially, and I sought to make it right. I sought to seek truth in the situation and to correct my wrongdoing. And if you practice it in the small stuff, it's a lot easier when you make big mistakes to come to your spouse or your children or your boss and say, hey, I really screwed up. And when you have come to those people with the little stuff that you've messed up about or wronged them on, it's a lot easier for them to give grace. So, like, if we want to live in a society where we see more forgiveness, we see more graciousness in the society, I think it's very important for us to seek truth. So, the 5 traits of a truth seeker that I have kind of come up with through thinking about it is the first is to have courage. We must be willing to speak the truth regardless of what it is, and to speak what we believe to be true regardless of what it is. Now, the key point there is we believe many things to be true and we don't have all the information. We may think we do, but oftentimes we don't. So this leads kind of into the second and the third thing. The second one is to defend your beliefs. If you have a belief, if you believe something to be true, you should defend that belief. You should speak up about it. You should speak out about it. And then the third trait is to be challenged. You should allow people to challenge you. You should be gracious in this. This is not a malicious speaking up about it. Defending your beliefs doesn't mean arguing about it to be right. It means giving your perspective, showing what you think, telling what you believe, and allowing others to come in and have conversations with you about that, for them to do the same thing, for them to defend their beliefs, and for us to hear their arguments. And when there are good arguments, when there is good evidence, we should be challenged. We should change our beliefs to be in line with the truth. The fourth, and this is probably the hardest for everybody. While the fourth and the fifth are difficult, I think. They're both difficult for me. But the fourth is to pray for your enemies. And if you're not Christian, then at least have grace for your enemies. Like, if you're not religious, have grace for your enemies, right? We should seek to not have any enemies. I can't think of anybody who I would consider my enemy. Now, that being said, there may be people out in the world that consider me their enemy, and that I have no control over. So I can't waste time dwelling on that. But I should pray for my enemies. I should pray for the people who wrong me. I should at the very least have grace for them so that we can have civil conversations. Now, when I say I can't think of any person or anyone that is my enemy, I'm saying a specific person. I can think of ideologies and I can think of beliefs that are in opposition to my beliefs and what I believe is true and what is right. But that's kind of why I've created this framework for myself, and I hope that it's helpful to you too. All right, the last thing, and it may be the most important one, is to resist the algorithm. It's the name of this podcast. It is the mantra in which I've built Niched behind. And the reason why I think it's so important is because algorithms control the flow of information to us. So we have to be careful. We have to be mindful of that, and we should be resisting that. We should be questioning it, right? It calls to being a skeptic. It calls to having a skeptic's mind, and being skeptical is not a bad thing. In fact, my deep-seated faith, my Christianity, calls me to be skeptical. It calls me to test the things that come across as, or that are presenting themselves as spiritual. It calls me to test things against the truth. So I am to be a skeptic. Resisting the algorithm, I think, is the chief way we can do this in this digital world. So those are the 5 things. Have courage, defend your beliefs, be challenged, be gracious towards your enemies, pray for your enemies, and resist the algorithm. And I think if you have those 5 things in your life, you are seeking out truth, you're having common discourse with people, you're being gracious towards people, and society as a whole would be better if we all took those 5 points on and took them on as our perspective and our goal when we're having conversations and debates and even arguments with other people. So thank you for hearing me out on that. Let me know in the comments if you think it's beneficial. Let me know if you think it's missing anything. There's gaps in every framework and ideology, but I appreciate you hearing me out on that. So first story today. It's Friday, so of course we're going to do a couple of current events, but I have some more uplifting stories at the end to go into the weekend with. But Trump signs TikTok deal. Who's reporting here? I forget. New York Post. Trump signs TikTok deal that gives American investors majority control after a very good talk with President Xi. This has so far in his second term been my biggest criticism of him. Congress passed a law to ban TikTok. It was very specific. Trump kind of ignored that, and Congress kind of ignored that he was ignoring it. So I mean, I guess it's all kosher, but I think that if the president shouldn't be able to just choose to not listen to Congress. I think that's bad when it happens on either side. But I think it's good that we're coming to a deal here with the TikTok thing. I think part of the reason why they ignored Trump's extensions on it, they being Congress ignored Trump's extension on it, is because they really didn't want the backlash from TikTok being banned. What they wanted was China to come to the table and essentially follow what the American law has set out to do. So let's read this story here. President Trump signed an executive order Thursday approving the transfer of the widely popular video platform's U.S. operations to a consortium of American-based investors, noting he did so after a very good talk with President Xi. Trump, who plans to meet Xi in South Korea on the sidelines next month's APEC summit. Wow, that's really poorly worded. That's amazing. So side note here, New York Post, this sentence says, Trump, who plans to meet Xi in South Korea on the sidelines next month's APEC summit. At next month's APEC summit. There's no editors anymore. It's kind of frustrating. Okay, sorry. Done with the sideline. Told reporters in the Oval Office, we have great American investors prepared to take over TikTok, but did not name all of them. The president did highlight the role of Oracle co-founder Larry Ellison and said that Dell Technology CEO Michael Dell and Rupert Murdoch, the founder of News Corp, the parent company of The Post, were excited to be involved. I spoke with President Xi, Trump said. We had a good talk. I told him what we were doing, and he said, go ahead with it. Trump, 79, vowed that the newly American-run TikTok would treat every philosophy fairly after complaints from the U.S. leaders and the anti-U.S. content got billing while the platform was run by Chinese company ByteDance. If I could make it 100% MAGA, I would, but it's not going to work out that way. Unfortunately, no. Everyone's going to be treated fairly, Trump said. Every group, every philosophy, every policy will be treated very fairly. Vice President J.D. Vance, who joined Trump for the Oval Office event, said TikTok's algorithm in the U.S. will now be controlled by the American investors, clarifying the lease of the technology outlined in the deal. What the deal ensures is that the American entity and the American investors will actually control the algorithm, Vance said. We don't want it used as a propaganda tool by any foreign government. We want to make sure that our people and our investors actually make these decisions based on what's good for their business, as opposed to what's good for another government's propaganda arm. Former President Joe Biden signed bipartisan legislation in April 2024 that gave ByteDance the option to reduce its stake in TikTok to 20%, or facing a blanket ban inside the United States. The deal serves as a workaround as both Biden and Trump delayed implementation of the ban, with Trump arguing it would increase the power of the U.S. social media giants to censor political content. The executive order asserts that the divestiture of the applications outlined in the framework agreement, once its implementation agreements are executed, is a qualified divestiture under the Act. So, this is a good thing. Following the requirements set forth by Congress is a good thing. The delays by both presidents, like I said, I think that's I don't think executive orders should be able to stay congressional legislation, and I think that's a bad thing when it happens on either side. So I'm glad to see that this is finally coming to a head. It's taken way too long for it to happen, but this is also better for America if we can have TikTok. And granted, we would have had some sort of TikTok, even if TikTok got banned across the United States of America. Someone would have came in and filled the void. But if we can have TikTok without the algorithmic control being in the hands of the Chinese, that's better. It would be even better if there were a way to not have the algorithm at all, But you know that that's my philosophy and my mentality on social media sites anyway. And we also know that that is not going to happen. Um, that being said, if this is just a front and behind the scenes, the, ByteDance is still having control over it, and obviously the Chinese government has control over ByteDance, then that's not good for free speech. It's not good for conversations to be happening online. So that's my main perspective, my main concern. I want to see more free speech online, and anytime we're moving in that direction, even if it's incrementally, I think it's a good thing. So the one thing I did ask is I did go over to Perplexity on this story, and I said, what would the consequences be if Trump disobeyed Congress on the TikTok ban? So if Trump continues to openly disobey Congress on the TikTok ban, the main consequences would unfold across legal, political, and constitutional domains with significant impacts on governance, corporate America, and rule of law. By refusing to enforce the TikTok ban, passes with overwhelming bipartisan support and upheld in the Supreme Court. President Trump asserts a de facto power to nullify laws he does not agree with, essentially treating Congress's legislation as optional. Yeah, this is not a good thing. This expansion of executive power is viewed by many legal analysts as a precedent-setting overreach, raising questions about whether future presidents could selectively suspend laws at will. Okay, I think that's a bit of a stretch. Because he had the Congress, and the Congress essentially just allowed him to do that because they decided not to, sue and take it to the courts. I'm sure there was negotiations behind the scene. I'm sure it was goodwill that, it's like Trump is like, no, I'm trying to move towards this. I just need more time. Come on, it's China. I need to figure this out, type of thing. He had other things on his agenda before it came to this, is I think what it really boiled down to, which is why Congress gave him time to get to a deal. Tech companies such as Apple and Google, directed by Trump's Justice Department not to fear penalties, face enormous legal uncertainty since these presidential guarantees might not hold if he reverses course, or if a future administration enforces law retroactively. Sure, yeah. Political consequences. There has been little appetite in Congress to challenge Trump's non-enforcement, despite bipartisan concern and national security arguments that underpinned the ban. For the public stakeholders, the ban and delays have become highly politicized, with Trump using issues to position himself against both Congress and the Supreme Court. Yeah, so like I said, no one pushed back against him, essentially. If it were opposite, if, the Democrats were in charge of Congress, I'm sure they would have used every lever possible to be able to leverage this to happen more quickly. All right, this next story is about a study, or a report rather, that looked into Instagram to see its effects on teens. So this is from The Independent. Instagram's deliberate design choices make it unsafe for teens despite Meta's promises, report finds. Despite years of congressional hearings, academic research, whistleblowers, and testimony from parents and teenagers about the harms of Instagram, Meta's wildly popular app has failed to protect children from harms with woefully ineffective safety measures, according to the new report from former employee and whistleblower Arturo Bijar and 4 nonprofit groups. Meta's efforts at addressing teen safety and mental health on its platforms have long met with criticism that the changes do not go far enough. Now the report published Thursday from Bijar, the Cybersecurity for Democracy at New York University and Northeastern University, the Molly Rose Foundation, Fair Play, and Parents SOS, claims Meta has chosen not to take real steps to address safety concerns, opting instead for splashy headlines about new tools for parents and Instagram teen accounts for underage users. Meta said the report misrepresents its efforts on teen safety. The report evaluated 47 of Meta's 53 safety features for teens on Instagram and found that the majority of them are either no longer available or ineffective. Others reduced harm, but came with some notable limitations. while only 8 tools worked as intended with no limitations. The reports focused on Instagram's design, not content moderation. The distinction is critical because social media platforms and their defenders often conflate efforts to improve platform design with censorship. The report says, however, assessing safety tools and calling out Meta when these tools do not work as promised has nothing to do with free speech. Holding Meta accountable for deceiving young people and parents about how safe Instagram really is not a free speech issue. Meta called the report misleading, dangerously speculative, and said it undermines the important conversation about teen safety. This report repeatedly misrepresents our efforts to empower parents and protect teens, misstating how our safety tools work and how millions of parents and teens are using them today. Teen accounts lead the industry because they provide automatic safety protections and straightforward parental controls, Meta said. The reality is teens who are placed into these protections saw less sensitive content, experienced less unwanted content, and spent less time on Instagram at night. Parents also have robust tools at their fingertips, from limiting usage to monitoring interactions. We'll continue improving our tools, and we welcome constructive feedback, but this report is not that. Meta has not disclosed what percentage of parents use its parental controls. Such features can be useful for families in which parents are already involved in their child's online life and activities, but experts say that's not the reality for many people. All right, so Meta has parental controls on Instagram. This report found that 47 out of 53 of them either don't work as intended or are ineffective, or not even available or ineffective. Look, I believe strongly in protecting children. I'm an advocate for not having advertising at all in any shape or form for kids under the age of, say, 15 or so, 13 to 15. Kids can't make decisions like this for themselves. That they don't understand the consequences of talking to certain people online. Yes, ideally, in an ideal world, parents would be involved and the ones in control of this. In an ideal world, Meta would give Instagram all sorts of functionalities and features that truly put the power into the parents' hands and lock things down. I think it's very difficult to retroactively put stuff like this in if it's not planned for. It's difficult because each of these platforms are entrenched in their own philosophies and business models and that sort of thing. And not that I'm not saying they're good or bad. I'm just saying that they're established already, and it's very hard to build it in. There's so many moving parts to these apps. They're massive code bases that are trying to do all sorts of different things. So it's difficult to get true functionality and to truly know that it's fully being implemented across the platform. That's not an excuse for Meta and Instagram, but it's rather a point to the fact that they never planned to do this. It's very clear that ideally they wanted to capture young minds as well. And I mean, that's part of marketing. It's well known that in marketing that if you can get somebody tied to your brand at a young age, they will stay attached for a very long time. So I think it's good that there's parents out there that are concerned for their kids and concerned how it's affecting their children. And I hope to see that more social media platforms out there make a more concerted effort to protect young people. My general plan with Niched is to not really have kids on the platform unless they are attached to their parents' account, and to give their parents the ability to block whole topics and niches. But that's how Niched is designed, right? This whole podcast is sponsored by Niched. This is what I was going to talk about next anyway. It is a new type of platform. It's not social media because we don't have all these things built in like algorithms and gatekeepers to control and push certain narratives and certain things onto other people. That being said, I do have plans right now for accounts for young people, but associated and attached to a parent's account. So a parent can come in and see the history of what their kids are looking at to limit the number of niches that they can even see content in, to limit potentially the content they can see from people depending on age and that sort of thing. Like a whole suite of functionality is in the works, in the plan and the roadmap for Niche to help protect young people online. I hope that Niche becomes a truly safe place for young people to be able to interact with content online and their interests and their passions. So, for instance, if you don't want your kids interacting with politics without having the ability to have a conversation with them about what they're seeing, you will be able, as the parent, to block the political niche from your child's account. They won't be able to access it. If you want them to see content about Minecraft or whatever, you'll be able to allow them to follow it. You can block, hopefully in the future, video games and movies and that sort of thing based on rating. You can block certain hobbies. For instance, cigar smoking is going to be a hobby on Niche. It's a passion of mine and many of my friends. But you probably don't want your kids to be interacting with cigar content at a young age. Maybe you do. Maybe you don't care. Maybe you're more libertarian on the topic. But the point is, you as the parent should have the power, not me, not my ideology, not my belief system should be imposed onto your kids. But you should be able to freely teach your kids your belief system and what you want to get, like what you want them to have in life. So that's a little snippet about what Niched is about. It's not implemented yet, but it's planned for down the road. If that interests you at all, an algorithm-free platform, a gatekeeper-free platform, a place where you can totally control and curate your feed, and you have the functionality to filter it the way that you want to so that it's 100% unique to you, go to resistthealgorithm.com. Learn more about it. See if there's a way you can support. Very soon I will have open signups for anybody to sign up free of charge through certain links. And yeah, it's exciting. It's a project I've been working on for years now, and I hope it's a benefit to you. So again, if you're interested at all in any of that, go to resistthealgorithm.com. All right. It's Friday, so we're going to talk about some uplifting things now. I need a front light, don't I? I get dark when I go to darker websites. Right on. I saw a squirrel. All right, so I was on Not the Bee earlier today. I found two stories that I thought were pretty cool. This is written today, but desperate California cat lady rents billboard to find liberal husband. All right. Let's hear what it says. No, this is not a joke. Why do you ask? Meet desperate bachelorette Lisa Catalano. KRON reports this lady is so ready to get married and have kids that she took out six digital billboards to find a man. I get it. Finding a spouse is tough these days. But let's take a look at her website and see if we can figure out what might have driven poor Lisa here to such desperation. Here are some red flags already. Democrat liberal. Non-practicing Catholic, not religious. Loves cats. Wants marriage and kids within the next 2 to 3 years with the right man. Lisa is 41 years old. A 41-year-old liberal agnostic cat lady. So, what's kept her from finding that special someone so far? Well, here are her list of non-negotiable demands for a potential husband. Must be on board with monogamous relationship and dating with the intent for marriage. Must be all right with a time frame of marriage and starting a family within the next 2 to 3 years. College educated, bachelor degree at a minimum. Generally healthy lifestyle is a must. No marijuana, tobacco, psychedelics, or recreational drug use. Good hygiene. No criminal record. Non-violent personality. No or minimal tattoos and piercings. Those are all fine and great choices for any woman, as long as she's looking for a good conservative Christian man. That's where things get sticky. Must be Democratic or liberal or left-leaning politically. looking for someone who is not particularly religious, okay with spiritual or non-religious, or along those lines. Imagine trying to find a Democrat, non-religious man who is okay getting married and having kids right away, does not use drugs, and has a non-violent personality, and isn't tattooed or pierced into oblivion. And keep in mind, we're talking about San Francisco here. It looks like poor Lisa is suffering from the common delusion that masculine, upstanding, liberal men exist anymore. The left-right dividing line moved to the left of the normal guys that Lisa is looking for years ago. I wish her all the best. All right, well, you guys know what Lisa's looking for. If you're interested, go to marrylisa.com. Let's see. Let's see if it's... Yep, here you go, marrylisa.com. There she is, 41-year-old liberal cat lady, if you're interested. Additional questions and media inquiries? Hey, perfect. I wish you all the best if you're going down that route. All right. This is a little bit different of a story. Tim Allen says Erica inspired him to forgive father's killer. When Erica Kirk spoke the words on the man who killed her husband, that young man, I forgive him. That moment deeply affected me. I've struggled for over 60 years to forgive the man who killed my dad. I will say those words now as I type. I forgive the man who killed my father. Peace be with you all. Allen's father died in 1964 after a drunk driver's vehicle collided with his vehicle. Allen was 11 years old at the time of his father's death. The iconic Home Improvement actor's emotional post was just the latest in a long line of people who expressed how much of an impact Erica's speech had made on them. For anyone who missed it, here's a heart-wrenching but amazing clip.
That man, that young man, I forgive him. I forgive him because it was what Christ did and is what Charlie would do.
Yeah, so if you can't see, there's just, the whole stadium stands up and is applauding. There's tears in many people's eyes. But yeah. Anyway, the article goes on here. Charlie Kirk's death continues to have a ripple effect. This is not the first time Allen has posted publicly about a more introspective or downright spiritual journey, having mentioned his studying of the Bible last year. Never took time in all my years to ever read and really read the Bible. Currently almost through the Jerusalem Bible Old Testament and almost done with the prophets. Next up to the New Testament. So far amazing and not at all what I was expecting. In true Tim Allen fashion, though, he followed up with an amusing take. Continuing my reading of the complete Bible, finished a rather intense Ezekiel, now on to Daniel. The challenge in reading this book is how I translate words that the eternal expresses into the temporary. I need a Snickers. He is a comedian after all. Yeah, so this is great. I mean, Erica's speech was incredible in the sense that I don't know how you do that so few days after your husband was killed. I have never had a family member killed. Many of my friends know who may be watching this that I have had my sister pass away almost 2 years ago exactly now. And she didn't have a killer. She was 30. How old was she? She was 31 or 2. I'd have to do the math real quick, but she was in her early 30s. She died of natural causes. There was no explanation for what happened. I didn't have an enemy to hate. There was no one for me to hate but God. And I remember in the moments after my wife and I found her that I praised him that she was able to finish her race, and I prayed that she was to be taken into the kingdom and that I might one day see her again. And I hope I do. I strongly believe I know where I'm going. I am not at all confident about where anyone else is going because I don't know, because that's a thing that only two beings ever know for certain. It's you and your creator. Only two people ever know for certain where you're going to eternally dwell, and that's you and your creator. You know if you are a Christian and you know where you're headed. You know if it's true or if it's not true, if it's some big charade that you're playing at. So for Tim Allen to be affected and for him to be able to forgive even after 60 years, forgiveness has no expiration date, right? You can forgive at any point in time. Forgiveness isn't chiefly about what it does for the other person either. It's chiefly about what it does for you, the bitterness and the hardness that has, creeped inside of your heart and your soul. Forgiveness allows a release of that and a relinquishing of what you were holding on to so tightly, and essentially making an idol in your life. So I encourage you, if you're struggling to forgive someone or forgive a situation, and again, I said the other day this is a side note, I said the other day when she did the forgiveness, this doesn't excuse the person who wronged her. It doesn't mean that there aren't going to be legal ramifications for the person that wronged her and there aren't going to be consequences. But I think Erica recognized that Christ forgave because it was a example for us to follow, because he knew that it was something that benefited the individual forgiving more so than benefited the individual being forgiven. So if you're struggling to forgive someone, I highly encourage you to do it. There's a huge amount of release from letting go of that thing that you're holding on to and making an idol in your life. And I would ask that you humbly consider praying about it, praying for God's help to forgive that person, because it's not something that is a human thing. Humans can't just truly forgive without the help and the grace of God. All right, last thing for today. Yesterday we went over Federalist number 2. We have John Jay back again today. Back from the past for Federalist number 3. Federalist number 3. The same subject continued concerning dangers from foreign force and influence to the people of the state of New York. It is not a new observation that the people of any country, if, like the Americans, intelligent and well-informed, seldom adopt a steadily persevere, seldomly adopt and steadily persevere for many years in an erroneous option respecting their interests. That consideration naturally tends to create great respect for the high opinion which the people of America have so long and uniformly entertained of the importance of their continuing firmly united under one federal government, vested with sufficient powers for all general and national purposes. The more attentively I consider and investigate the reasons which appear to have given birth to this option, the more I become convinced that they are cogent and conclusive. So he's saying, hey, this is not a new idea again, right? This is not a new idea to have a union. We already established a union. It's not a new idea. We are intelligent and well-informed people. It's rare that intelligent and well-informed people adopt a thing only to then debate it and move away from it. And he says the more that he thinks about it and considers it, the more he believes is steadfast in the belief that they are cogent and conclusive, that they were correct. Among the many objects to which a wise and free people find it necessary to direct their attention, that of providing for their safety seems to be first. The safety of the people doubtless has relation to a great variety of circumstances and considerations, and consequently affords great latitude to those who wish to define it precisely and comprehensively. So he's saying, I'm talking to you now of safety. Safety is one of the reasons why we created this government, why we all came in and agreed to be a part of this union. At present, I mean only to consider it as it respects security for the preservation of peace and tranquility, as well as against dangers from foreign arms and influence, as from dangers of the like kind arising from domestic causes. As the former of these comes first in order, it is proper it should be the first discussed. Let us therefore proceed to examine whether the people are not right in their opinion that a cordial union under an efficient national government affords them the best security that can be devised against hostilities from abroad. The number of wars which have happened or will happen in the world will always be found to be in proportion to the number and weight of the causes, whether real or pretend, which provoke or invite them. All right, so he's saying all wars have a reason, and they're going to be equal to the number of causes, whether they're real causes or not real causes. That's the way wars start and happen. If this remark be just, it becomes useful to inquire whether so many just causes of war are likely to be given by United America as by disunited America. For if it should turn out that United America will probably give the fewest, then it will follow that in this respect the Union tends most to preserve the people in a state of peace with other nations. The just cause of war, for the most part, arise either from violation of treaties or from direct violence. America has already formed treaties with no less than 6 foreign nations, and all of them, except for Prussia, are maritime, and therefore able to annoy and injure us. She has also extensive commerce with Portugal, Spain, and Britain, and with respect to the two latter has, in addition, the circumstance of neighborhood to attend to. All right, so he's saying there, isn't it more likely that a unified nation has less just causes to go to war? And then he's saying that for a nation, the just causes of war are violation of treaties or direct violence from lack of treaties, essentially. And he said that we have treaties with many nations, many maritime nations that could annoy and injure us if it were not for the treaties. And then he says we also have extensive commerce with Portugal, Spain, and Britain. And we also have the consideration that the latter two, Spain and Britain, are in our neighborhood. It is of high importance to the peace of America that she observe the laws of nations towards all these powers. And to me, it appears evident that this will be more perfectly and punctually done by one national government than it could either by 13 separate states or by 3 or 4 distinct confederacies. So he's saying that it's more likely for us to protect these laws, these treaties that we've made with these other nations. They are laws, if we are unified, rather than if we're 13 distinct states or if we are a handful of different confederacies. Okay. So he continues to talk about this throughout the middle of it. I would encourage you to go read it yourself. I was going to jump down. Where was I going to jump down? I was going to jump down to... I lost my place. Sorry, guys. Bear with me. Yeah, okay. I was in the right place. Right here. Because such violences are more frequently caused by the passions and interests of a part rather than a whole of 1 or 2 states than the Union, not a single Indian war has yet... This is not what I was going to talk about. The neighborhood of Spanish and British territories bordering on some states and not on others naturally confines the cause of quarrel more immediately to the borders. The bordering states, if any, well, actually, it does. I should have been more prepared. I apologize, guys. I'll just read it from here. Because such violences are more frequently caused by the passion and interests of a part than of the whole, one or two states than of the Union. Not a single Indian war has yet been occasioned by aggressions of the present federal government, feeble as it is. But there are several instances of Indian hostilities having been provoked by the improper conduct of individual states, who, either unable or unwilling to restrain or punish offenses, has given occasion to the slaughter of many innocent inhabitants. Okay, so yes, that was where I wanted to start. Cool. What he's saying there is the federal government has not gone and had any Indian aggression yet, right? Native American aggression yet. Now, we know history shows that there's a different story there, but the case he's making is that it's more likely for us to find peace with our immediate neighbors in our neighborhood, in our essentially continent here, than it would be if there were different states, because other states have provoked this or have gone into skirmishes in that area. The neighborhood of Spanish and British territories bordering on some states and not others naturally confines the causes of quarrel more immediately to the borderers. The bordering states, if any, will be those who, under the impulse of sudden irritation and a quick sense of apparent interest or injury, will be most likely, by direct violence, to excite war with these nations, and nothing can so effectually obviate the danger as a national government, whose wisdom and prudence will not be diminished by the passions which actuate the parties immediately interested. But not only fewer causes of war will be given by the national government, but it will also be more in their power to accommodate and settle them amicably. They will be more temperate and cool, and in that respect, as well as in others, will be more in capacity to act advisedly than the offending state. The pride of states as well as of men naturally disposes them to justify all their actions, and opposes their acknowledging, correcting, or repairing their errors and offenses. The national government in such cases will not be affected by this pride, but will proceed with moderation and candor to consider and decide on the means most proper to extricate them from the difficulties which threaten them. Besides, it is well known that acknowledgments, explanations, and compensations are often accepted as satisfactory from a strong, united nation, which would be rejected as unsatisfactory if offered by a state or confederacy of little consideration or power. All right, that's Federalist number 3. I suggest you go read it in its entirety. There at the end, he's talking about, how a national government can curb war much better than tiny little states can. And his idea there is that, the passions of the offended state will probably lead to poor judgment and poor decision making, where the federal government can slow things down. And this is a key component of the beliefs of almost all of our founding fathers. They designed things in a way to go slowly. And most of the time, when you look out and see what problems are plaguing us in, current affairs today, and most of the time it's a frustration. When it's a frustration with the government, it's a frustration, at least on one side, that they're not going fast enough. And that's not how the vehicle of the federal government was designed to be. It was designed to be slow. And think about how many states might have been frustrated by this. States where governors had a lot of power, because a state, even in our current system, is supposed to be one of the most powerful politicians in the country, is one of the 50 state governors. They are supposed to be. They have more power to do anything than pretty much any other politician, except for maybe the president and maybe you can make an argument for the vice president. But it's interesting to see here, even so early on, from John Jay in the Federalist Papers, that he's like, look, we can slow things down, we can cool the temperatures, we can probably find a better resolution if we're together rather than apart. All right, guys, that's all I have for you today. Remember, have courage, defend your beliefs, be challenged, pray for your enemy, and above all, resist the algorithm. And I will see you Monday at noon Eastern. Take care. Thanks for watching.